The cell smelled of ozone and rust, the kind of stale, recycled air that came from a ship too old to be running half its life support systems properly. Captain Darian Voss sat against the curved wall, wrists bound in alloy cuffs that hummed faintly with a dampening field, and waited. He had been waiting for 6 hours. The Skarn vessel Cinder's Maw had pulled his shuttle out of the void with a tractor beam 3 days after the ambush at the Velker Strait, where what remained of the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet had been scattered like buckshot across half a star system. Most of his crew were dead. The ones who weren't had been redistributed, in the cold language the Skarn used for prisoners they intended to interrogate, sell, or simply dissect for curiosity's sake. Darian had been brought before their commander twice already. Both times, the questions had been the same. Where is the rest of your fleet? What is the location of Earth's forward staging points? What weapons does your species possess that we have not yet catalogued? Both times, Darian had said nothing at all. He had simply smiled, which seemed to unsettle the Skarn more than any answer could have. The cell door hissed open. Warlord Zareth ducked through it, nearly 7 feet of armored chitin and corded muscle, mandibles clicking with the low, constant rhythm that passed for breathing among his kind. He'd shed the formal command plating he usually wore on the bridge, replaced now with simpler battle harness, the kind worn by a Skarn officer who expected to get his hands dirty. Captain Voss, Zareth said, his translator collar rendering the words in flat, accented standard. You continue to be uncooperative. I continue to be quiet, Darian said. There's a difference. Zareth crouched, bringing his faceted eyes level with the humans. Up close, Darian could see the old scars crossing the warlord's mandibles, souvenirs, probably, of campaigns against a dozen other species who had not survived contact with the Skarn Dominion. Zareth had a reputation. 11 systems pacified. 3 civilizations reduced to tributary states. He did not lose. You should understand your position, Zareth said. Your fleet is broken. Your homeworld is 4 months from any reinforcement, by your own technology's limits. You are alone, on my ship, in my custody. There is no rescue coming for you, Captain. There is only what I choose to allow. Darian tilted his head, considering this. You know, he said, every species I've ever read about that conquered as fast as yours did had one thing in common. And what is that? They never lost. Not once. Not badly enough to learn what losing teaches you. Darian shifted against the wall, the cuffs clinking. You've been undefeated for so long you think undefeated means undefeatable. That's not strategy, Warlord. That's just a winning streak that hasn't ended yet. Zareth's mandibles clicked sharply, something between amusement and irritation. Bold words from a chained animal. Maybe, Darian agreed. Or maybe I just know something you don't. Enlighten me, then. Darian leaned forward as far as the restraints allowed. You didn't capture a soldier, Zareth. You captured a problem. And problems have a way of solving themselves on humanity's terms, not yours. The Skarn warlord left without further comment, which Darian had learned to recognize as a small victory. Predators like Zareth didn't like prey that refused to act like prey. It unsettled them in ways violence never could. What Zareth didn't know, what none of the Skarn High Command had bothered to learn in their 3 years of border skirmishes with the human expanse, was that Darian Voss had not always been a captain of the line. Before the war, before the uniform, he had spent 6 years in Fleet Intelligence's Deep Systems Division, the quiet branch that nobody talked about at parties because the work was, by necessity, the kind that didn't make headlines. He had spent those years learning languages that weren't human, studying the architecture of alien command structures, and most usefully, right now, learning how dampening fields worked. The cuffs on his wrists were standard Skarn military issue. Efficient. Reliable. And, like most Skarn technology, built around the assumption that the wearer's biology matched Skarn biology, 4-chambered neural conduits, magnetic sensitive bone marrow, the works. Human bones weren't magnetic sensitive. The dampening field that should have made his cuffs immovable was calibrated for a body that wasn't his. It had taken him 6 hours of careful, patient, nearly imperceptible flexing to feel the give in the alloy's weld point, a manufacturing tolerance built for a wrist twice the thickness of his own. By hour 7, the cuffs came apart in his hands like wet paper. The cinders ran a skeleton watch during what passed for ship's night. Skarn physiology required less sleep than human, but their command structure was rigid, and Zareth had trained his crew to rotation discipline that left long stretches of the lower decks unattended. Darien had counted the patrol intervals over 3 days of captivity, the way he'd once counted artillery cadence outside Rhea's station, the way he counted everything now out of habit older than the war itself. He moved through the ship's maintenance corridors like he belonged there, keeping to the access ways too narrow for Skarn battle armor, places built for the engineering drones rather than soldiers. He found the auxiliary armory exactly where the ship's layout, visible on every status panel he passed, because the Skarn, in their certainty, had never imagined a captive might simply read their displays, told him it would be. He took nothing flashy. A sidearm. A breech charge, small enough to fit in a palm. A length of conduit wire that would, with the right pressure, double as a garrote in a pinch he hoped not to reach. What he wanted most was the bridge. Zareth was reviewing tactical projections when the lights along the command deck flickered and died, replaced a half-second later by the dimmer glow of emergency lighting. Every screen on the bridge blanked at once. "Report," Zareth snapped. Silence. Then, from the overhead comm, a human voice, calm, almost conversational. "Your engineering deck just lost main power, Warlord." Funny thing about ships that run half their life support on backup systems, they tend to have a lot of single points of failure. I found 3 of them on my way up here. Zareth's mandibles froze mid-click. Voss. In the flesh. Well, some of it's still bound, technically, but I'm working on that part. You will be recaptured within the hour, Zareth said, motioning 2 of his guards toward the door even as he spoke. There is nowhere on this ship for you to go. I'm not trying to go anywhere, Darien said. I'm trying to make a point. The bridge doors hissed open, not from outside, but from a maintenance panel set into the floor that no Skarn officer had ever once considered a threat vector, because no Skarn soldier was small enough or flexible enough to use it. Darien rose through the gap, sidearm in one hand, the other still wearing half a broken cuff like a bracelet. The 2 guards moved. Darien was faster, not stronger, not better armored, but faster in the specific, practiced way of a man who had spent a career being underestimated by things twice his size. The first guard went down before his weapon cleared its holster. The second took a breech charge to the chest plating that didn't kill him but put him on the floor clutching smoking armor and screaming in a register Darien's translator didn't bother converting. Then it was just Zareth, and the sidearm, and silence. "You said there was nowhere for me to go," Darien said. "You were right. So I came here instead." Zareth's claws flexed, but he didn't move. 11 systems pacified. 3 civilizations made tributary. And he was looking, for the first time in longer than he could remember, at the barrel of a weapon held by someone who was not afraid of him. "What is it you want?" Zareth said slowly. "Captain. I want you to understand something," Darien said, "that your whole Dominion is about to learn the hard way. You picked humanity because we looked small. Few ships, slow tech, a species that bled easy. You thought that made us prey." He stepped closer. "But prey doesn't break out of cuffs built for someone else's wrists. Prey doesn't memorize patrol routes for fun. Prey doesn't walk onto your bridge alone and ask politely for your surrender before it stops being polite." "And if I refuse?" Zareth said. Darien's smile didn't waver. "Then I stop being the soldier you captured, and start being the mistake you made." For a long moment, the only sound on the bridge was the hum of emergency lighting and the rasping breath of a guard still smoking on the floor. Then Warlord Zareth, undefeated in 11 campaigns, conqueror of 3 worlds, commander of the Cinder's Maw, set down his weapon. Word would travel fast through Dominion space after that day, that a single chained human had taken an entire warship with nothing but patience, a broken cuff, and the simple, terrible certainty that he had never, for 1 second, actually been a prisoner. He had only been waiting for the right moment to stop pretending.